Well, it is Saturday, which is sourdough day around here, so that we have loaves for the week. And I've got a bit of an issue with this afternoon because I need to be at a dance show all afternoon, which throws a huge wrench into my usual timing for making the dough, stretching and folding it and all that. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to try out a no stretch and fold sourdough. So, I mean, like, what's the worst that can happen, right? Let's find out. So for this recipe, I've got filtered water here at room temperature, and I'm actually making 2 loaves here, so I'm going with 1,000 grams of this strong baker's flour, and I'm having a 72% hydration, so that's 720 grams of that filtered water in there. Now, since I'm not going to be stretching and folding this, which can definitely help limit the strength and the gluten development and whatnot of the bread, I'm going to give it a little bit extra mixing, both now and when I go to add the leaven and the salt down the road here. So I'm just going to go ahead and give this a really nice mix. All right, there we go. So this is the same recipe that I use for just my regular sourdoughs around here when I want just an all-white sourdough. So it'll be interesting to see how this compares to my usual loaves. At this point, I'm going to let this rest probably at least an hour here. I'm just waiting for the leaven to be ready, and then we can add that. Okay, so actually after an hour, I'm ready to add my leaven, which is all nice and poofy and jiggly right here. I'll just unwrap this, and I'm going to be adding 25% leaven here. So that's 250 grams because of the 1,000 gram flour. Keep going here. And I overshot. I made more leaven than I normally do today because I'm also going to be making some banana bread. So put this into here. Perfect. So now I'm just going to wet my hands with some filtered water. Help prevent this from sticking quite as much to me. And I like to drive that leaven in to the dough with my fingers. And now I will give this a pretty solid mix just with this little pinch and fold method. There we go. So after a couple of minutes there, that is nicely incorporated. I'm going to cover this back up with plastic and give it half an hour, and then we will add the salt. Okay, so now I'm going to add the salt, and this is fine sea salt, and I've got 18 grams, which is 1.8%. Okay, so I just added in the fine sea salt here, and that's 18 grams or 1.8%. And I'm going to now do that same thing where I'm just using my fingers to punch that salt down into the dough. And now I'm going to just little pinches and folds here to mix that in. And again, I'm going to give it a longer mix than I would normally, just so that I can do as much gluten development and whatnot at this stage, since it's the last chance I'll have. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to get cleaned up here and I will get this covered up. So normally at this point, I give the sourdough some stretches and folds, maybe some coil folds every 20 or 30 minutes and then let it bulk ferment. However, I'm out of here, so I'm just going to leave this covered and let it bulk ferment. It's going to be several hours before I'm back home. Fortunately, the house is a little bit cooler than normal. It's about 67 Fahrenheit in here right now, and I've got it on the quartz countertop. So that's going to kind of keep it just a little bit cooler, and I'm hoping I don't come back to something that's overly fermented. So yet another kind of little experiment that we have going on here with this longer fermentation. So fingers crossed. So it's been almost 6 hours, and looking at this dough, I can see that there's definitely lots of activity. There's big bubbles and stuff like that. It's reasonably pillowy when I kind of shimmy it around here. I don't know what the actual structure of it's going to be like yet, how strong it's going to be. But we will find out right now. I'm just going to flour my hands up here. I'm going to get this dough out. Now, because this is making 2 loaves, I'm also going to go ahead and just split this. Trying to get it relatively even. Just like that. And now, a little more flour on the hands. Just going to go ahead and give them a pre-shape. Trying to do it rather gently, but at the same time, this is another opportunity to just kind of get everything nice and tight, so I want to make sure to do my job with that. Okay, that's looking pretty good. There's some little bubbles here. I'm just sort of popping them, because that just results in blistering on the skin of the bread when you bake it. And getting number 2 here ready. I'm also kind of working it a little bit further away from this one, just so that there's room for me to put the bannetons over top, to cover them up, and let them rest here for probably 5 or 10 minutes. I'll check on them in 5 and either deal with them then or give them just a little bit more time. All right, so I just gave it 5 minutes here, and I'm going to go ahead, just give these a slight final shaping. I'm not going to bother to do any weird stretching or folding or anything like that and then giving them the final shaping. I've done that in the past with some of my sourdoughs, but since this is a no stretch and fold sourdough, I'm not going to do that. And these are now ready to go into these well rice floured bannetons. So I'm just going to flip, set them in like so, and then we're going to take, we have somebody over here. I'm going to take these little plastic covers and get them on and refrigerate overnight. Say hi. All right, so here we are the next morning. These were refrigerated overnight. I'm going to pop off those. I'm going to cover both of them with this parchment paper because once that's in the cast iron, which has been preheating at 500 degrees for an hour, it will help reduce potential scoring. And I also have this little UFO razor here, this lamb. Just going to flip, and I am going to add just a little bit more rice flour to that. Give it a quick score here. Something really simple. Fire it in. And we shall quickly repeat. This. And there we go. And once this is in here, we're going to take the other half of the combo cookers. Just cover them up. I'll trap that steam and hopefully allow for a bit better oven spring. There we go. So I'm going to reduce the heat down to 440 Fahrenheit and give it half an hour. Okay, so let's take a look at these after half an hour. Not bad looking oven spring from here, so I'm just going to turn it down to 430 and give it probably 20 or 22 minutes, just depending on how it looks. All right, so after 21 minutes, I'm happy with how the red is looking, so I'm just going to pop it out here. Just like so. So taking a look, this one here is definitely larger, but again, splitting the dough like this, which I'll do with some of these bashes, it's really hard to get it 100% even. So this could have also been a little bit less. I should weigh them out once they've cooled down. So yeah, now the hard part begins, the waiting game. So yesterday I made the executive decision to not go ahead and slice into that sourdough and to wait today for breakfast. And when I came downstairs, I saw that the children had gone ahead and ruined my glorious shot of slicing into the sourdough. So anyway, here you go. This is what that nicer loaf looked like right there. Not too bad, really, considering that there was so little effort involved. But now let's take a peek at slicing into the slightly smaller one. Which, by the way, I did weigh out what I could this morning, and I figured that that larger one was about 150 grams heavier, so that would make sense for it to be larger. But let's slice into the small one. I also want to point out, look at the angle. Look at that angle right here, huh? So much to learn. So much to learn. All right, we will slice in here to slightly smaller loaf, which is being obstinate. And take a look here. Pretty tight crumb pattern, except for in a couple of spots there where it's kind of opened up a little bit. But yeah, looks totally fine. Having had a slice of this mutilated loaf this morning, it tasted totally fine. It was really nice and moist, just like my regular sourdough. So yeah, while I do prefer the finished product just a little bit more, going through the effort of the stretching and folding, I think this was a super cool experiment, and if I'm ever rushed and don't have time to do it, this will certainly do in a pinch. So yeah, there you have it. Go ahead, don't bother stretching and folding if you don't have time. And until next time, keep her at 11.